Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by Losiko. So, today we have three articles, but basically two of them, one from the Hindu and the other from the Indian Express. They're both on the same topic, so we have clubbed them together. So, the first one we'll be discussing is from the Hindu, which is titled as Disinformation is a Cybersecurity Threat. A very beautiful, a kind of analogy has been drawn comparing these two things, disinformation and cybersecurity threat, and how if we treat disinformation as also like a cybersecurity threat, then there are better chances of dealing with it in a more efficient manner. So how is it possible? What are the prospects in this direction have been discussed in this article. And secondly, denying women the right over their bodies from the Hindu, and a misconceived approach from the Indian Express. Both of these talk about the new amendments that are sought to be brought through the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020. So, why is it not practical, and what is the importance of considering the consent of that particular woman has been discussed in these articles. And finally, we have the news and flash column for our prelims exam. So if you're also preparing for judicial services examination, you can have a look at the lot of the courses, which is the judiciary test prep course coming from LawSeco. So this course is already all set, and it's really it's doing well and lot good. So the link to this course is available in the description box below. You can download free study material as well for your own preparation. Also, we have other courses like for CLAT, SEBI, or India Bar Exam as well. And here we have a new introduction to you all, that we now also have a running course for limited insolvency examination from IBBI. If at all you're also preparing for this exam, then definitely have a look at the landing page to this. You can find this landing page. We'll put in a link to this landing page as well, and definitely have a look at it. With this, let's see what is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Uttarakhand falls primarily in which seismic zone? By seismic zone, we mean the zone which are more prone, or which are, the zones as per the earthquake vulnerability towards the earthquake. Zone 4, zone 5, or both A and B, or neither A nor B. This is the descriptive question for the day. Comment upon the viability of the new changes to be brought through the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020. That how much are these all amendments, if at all they come into a formalized picture, how, till what length or till what extent are they feasible in practical sense? So the first article talks about cyber attacks and cognitive hacking. For understanding this article specifically, the first thing that we need to understand is the meaning of these two terms, cyber security threats and cognitive hacking. So basically, just a second. Yes, so we need to understand the meaning of cybersecurity threats, and secondly, we need to understand the meaning of cognitive hacking. So, by cybersecurity or cyber attacks, simply cybersecurity threats or cyber attacks, we all know about it, that there are various kinds of attacks. Now, these are not something that take place in physical world, but rather these attacks are there on the on the the technological systems that we have. Now, this can be on our internet services, on our various software, etc. So, due to which the functioning of these services does not take place efficiently, and thus these attacks hinder the very purpose of any kind of technological system. And now, if we understand the meaning of cognitive hacking, so by cognitive, or by cognitive, simply we mean in the ability of the human or human mind to process an information, the ability to take up the right decisions, basically the ability to understand various things and to decide upon various factors. Now, if we club this word cognitive with this another word hacking, so just like there is hacking with the computer, and which ultimately ends up making the computer not to work very efficiently, and it completely disrupts the functioning of that particular computer system. Similarly, the hacking of the cognitive system of the human brain means that this any such step that can be taken through which the person is not able to comprehend properly, through which he's not able to take informed and clear decisions. So basically, this is done through, now the hacking which we are talking about, now this is, please do not think that this is something, a kind of a virus that enters our minds or something. No, it's nothing, absolutely nothing like that. That is why this beautiful article talks about disinformation. That is the wrong and false information that is, so widely propagating all around this world. This wrong and false information actually hacks the healthy mind of a person, or a healthy and unbiased mind of a person, and forces him to make biased perspectives. So basically, by cognitive hacking, it can simply be defined as the practice of manipulating, and specifically negatively manipulating and falsifying information to induce various kinds of changes, and to bring about such thought process which naturally was not the natural, the thought process of that particular mind. Rather, due to such false information, that thought process has been created. So I hope that for the beginning, you have already understood the meaning of cyber attacks and cognitive hacking. So here they say that it is similar to cyber attacks, and disinformation too is an attempt and compromise of the cognitive being. So here it has actually drawn, the author has drawn a comparative analysis and a comparison between cyber attacks and disinformation. So he says that the target of cyber attacks is that they're aimed at computer infrastructure, and the target of disinformation is it exploits our cognitive biases and logical fallacies. As I just said, that disinformation actually cripples down our ability to think rationally, our ability to decide in an unbiased and impartial manner. Then, for the execution, cyber attacks are executed using malware, virus, please mind, it has to be virus, trojans, botnets, and social engineering. So there are various, kinds of such software stuff. Viruses are there, and such trojans, malware are there that actually come and hack our computer systems and our computer infrastructure. Whereas the disinformation attacks using manipulated, miscontextualized, misappropriated information, deep fakes, and cheap fakes. So now these are something which, they do not really are that, as I just mentioned, they're not really going to hack your mind or something, and that you are going to have some neurological issue or something. The only thing that these things can do, that they can cripple your ability to think rationally and decide in an unbiased manner. So basically, both. Now, the similarity which is there in both cyber attacks as well as disinformation is that they're both used in concert to create more havoc. Now, whatever, see, like for example, there is a huge system. Maybe let's take an example of a huge government system, a government portal, maybe that has a lot of data and information. So, for example, if this government portal or this government system is hacked, so definitely a havoc is created, because the privacy and the vital information of thousands, lakhs, and crores of citizens, as well as very personal and very confidential data of the government also is at the stake. So this definitely has the potential to create a havoc. And similarly, if we talk about the disinformation or the wrong kind of information or false information, which is, it propagates all around the market, that also has a very huge potential of creating this haphazard and chaos and this havoc in the minds of the people. Ultimately, they're not able to think properly, and thus a complete, this a complete hazy situation is created, wherein clarity of thought cannot be achieved. So here a definition of our cognitive hacking has been provided. It is kind of a threat from disinformation and computational propaganda, attacks psychological vulnerabilities, perpetuates biases, and eventually compromises logical and critical thinking. So what it does, firstly, it will attack our psychological vulnerabilities. Now I'll give you a very good example of this. For example, there is a person who believes that people from some XYZ community, now it can be any community other than his own community, are not good, or they are the people who are more into crimes, or they are the people who are the reason for slow economic growth of the country, or any such ill informed, or just a kind of a biased perception that he has in his mind. So this will be this person's psychological vulnerability, that this is a point where he is very weak at, and here if at all he is touched, then he will not be able to think rationally. So the first thing that this disinformation does is that it attacks the psychological vulnerability of a person. Secondly, it perpetuates biases. Then next step that it does is that it brings into that person's mind lot of biasness, a lot of partiality, that something is good and the other thing is bad, something is beneficial, the other thing is detrimental, or any kind of biases. and eventually compromises the logical and critical thinking. So this person who could earlier maybe take a very rational, logical and critical decision, but now because of these things, because of his psychological vulnerabilities now being attacked, and because of this biasness being perpetuated in his thought process, he will not be able to take logical and rational and unbiased decisions. Then, to change the target audience's thoughts and manipulate the way people perceive reality. For example, there is any kind of election propaganda that is going on. So people who, let's say that the target of audience here is the people who do not have jobs. So there we are just giving them fake promises of giving them jobs and giving them, imparting skills to them and stuff like that. So we know that what thoughts we need to manipulate in such people, and thus these people will not be able to perceive the real state of the situation, and will all, they'll get into, indulge into such fake promises and fake information that so and so portals have been opened by the government, or so and so placements have been taken up by the government, or anything like that. And finally, implications are more devastating than cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. Now, this is the biggest problem over here, that even the loss that can be incurred on computer infrastructure or any other kind of infrastructure, it is still bearable, but the loss which is caused to this thinking process of the population, that is unbearable and beyond repair. So that is why it is very essential that we pay a lot of attention towards what kind of information is floating on the social media specifically, and what kind of information the people are projected towards. So that is why that ultimately decides that what will be their thought process in the short as well as the long run. So for the execution, it says that like a distributed denial of service used in a well-coordinated manner to fill broadcast and social channels with false information. So already what happens is, like, for example, there is any kind of a government website or any kind of website. So these distributed denial of service things, they will already put so much of load and traffic on that particular website that the actual and genuine requests or the genuine information will not be able to float, and only this fake news and fake information will be there that will be available at all. Now, here are other steps that are needed in this direction. Firstly, learn from the experience of cybersecurity experts. Now, because here the author says that since the kind of steps that the attackers or the hackers take are quite similar, in the case for cybersecurity, that is why a good piece of advice coming from the cybersecurity experts can definitely help in curbing down the problem of disinformation and misinformation as well. So the steps are: develop rigorous security frameworks, guidelines, standards, and best practices such as defense in depth. Now we'll also understand what do we mean by defense in depth, threat modeling, secure development life cycle, and red team, blue team to build cognitive hacking resilience. In this, the most important thing is the defense in depth mechanism or the defense in depth system. Basically, it means the information assurance strategy that provides multiple redundant defense measures if a security control fails. A very good example of this has been given in the article as well, that in a computer system, the firewall is the first layer of protection that is provided in the computer. But if at all any kind of malware or any kind of virus is able to jump across this firewall, then we have the antivirus program in our computer. And even to keep that updated, we have a regular patching that takes place so that we keep it updated, and thus our computer software and other things can be kept very safe. Thus, there are layers of protections that are available. There are in-depth protections that are available, that one layer after the other, which means that step by step, we are making sure that at no level any kind of this miscreation or any kind of these notorious things are allowed in any sense. Then, develop disinformation defense systems by studying strategy and tactics to understand the identities of the malicious actors, that who are in particular these people who are more interested in spreading such kind of disinformation in the society. And secondly, their activities and behaviors from cybersecurity domain, that what kind of portals they engaged into, what kind of things that they are propagating on the social media and stuff, which will actually tell about the nature of these people, and thus only then we'll be able to tackle them more efficiently. Then smart identity and education. Here, education on the part of the viewers is very, very crucial. I'll give you a very simple example to which all of us have been subjected someday or the other. WhatsApp fakes. So now the forwards on WhatsApp have become such a big problem that we do not even take the pain of, understanding even if that particular news which we are going to forward to next 50 or 100 people, whether or not that holds some truth in it or not. That is why it is very important for us, being responsible users of social media, that before propagating a particular news, or before letting any particular news article propagate or just spread like fire across the whole social media of things, it is our responsibility as responsible and informed and educated citizens that we make sure that no such false information is floating on the social media and other platforms available. And finally, mechanism like the ISAC, which is the Information Sharing and Analysis Centers, to share identity, context, and also actions and behaviors of the actors. So thus sharing of information and coordination amongst various authorities and various departments is very, very crucial. Then here are some international collaborations in this direction. Paris call for trust and security in cyberspace, for stability and security in cyberspace, which was signed by more than 1,000 entities. And Christchurch call to action to eliminate terrorist and violent extremist content online, which was 52 countries and international bodies have signed it. So here, as we just discussed, we were talking about the deep fake. So what they do is, like, here you can see they actually look so real that it is many times it is just very, very difficult and even close to impossible to even understand that there has been some morphing or some kind of change that has been taken up in a particular video or a photograph. So as you can see over here in this photo, so here there are some, this is the original one, and for example, if this is the deep fake, so there will be inconsistent eye blinking, mismatched earrings might be there, some features lack definition. So yes, some changes are there that can be, we can catch them upon great scrutiny, but easily to naked eyes, to simple, the normal viewers, it is not really easy to catch. Here we have the defense in depth architecture. Over here we have the national security and organization, legislation, procedures, awareness, data, software and application, network and communication through humans, hardware and technology, and physical environment. All these factors work together to provide the defense in depth architecture for any kind of security provisions. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about safe abortion. So recently, Argentina's Congress legalized abortions up to 14th week of pregnancy. And on this note, Indian Parliament, as we'll have to be discussing about this, too is considering amendment through the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020. So let's understand a bit about the abortion laws in India. So the MTP Act 1971, which currently till date is in function, it allowed termination up to 20 weeks of pregnancy and required second doctor's approval if pregnancy goes beyond 12 weeks. So it also allowed termination only when there is grave risk to physical or mental well-being of women or resulted from sex crimes, like it could be rape, or it could be a rape on a girl who is a minor. It could be a rape on a woman or a girl who is mentally challenged. So that is why in only such situations, the termination of pregnancy is allowed under this act. And thus, no importance has been given to the consent of that particular woman. So see, obviously before 20 weeks and also for 24 weeks, you can do it. But not before, if after that you want to do it, you are not allowed to get an abortion done. So it is not framed to respect women's right over her own body. So basically this article focuses upon the right of a woman on her own body. See, she's going to be the mother, she's going to bear the baby, she's going to feed the baby when it's born, she's going to raise the baby. So definitely it is her body and she should be the prime authority to take decisions about her body. But definitely under this act, after 24 weeks of pregnancy, she has absolutely no right to take decisions for her own body. So, but to make it easy for the state to control, but the women resort to unsafe methods. So it is like unlikely to believe that if at all after 24 weeks the pregnancy abortion is not allowed, so they don't even take place in India. They definitely do take place, and even unsafe methods of abortion are basically the third biggest reason for maternal deaths in India. So this is a big problem. So here, according to the proposed law, which will be coming, if at all it is brought up, it is passed in the Rajya Sabha as well, and through the amendment bill, it requires one doctor to sign off on termination up to 20 weeks and two doctors for up to 20 and 24 weeks. Basically, it will be providing that for till 24 weeks. So currently it is for 12 weeks, but if the amendment is done, then it will be for 24 weeks. So it provides that if at all a woman has to get an abortion done until 20 weeks of her pregnancy, then she will be requiring the written, a signature or a written recommendation of one doctor. But if that pregnancy it ranges from 20 weeks up to 24 weeks, then two doctors have to sign up for this particular act. Then it allows safe abortions at any stage in case of fetal abnormalities. But yes, here it provides that if at all, even after 24 weeks, there is any kind of fetal abnormality, that maybe there are high chances that the child would be stillborn, or the child will have some severe physical or severe medical issue, or is there is any kind of fetal as in the fetus, regarding the baby that's still in the womb of that woman. So the fetal abnormality is there, then at any stage the safe abortion is allowed. But yet again, it fails to consider any other reason, such as personal choice of the woman still has not been considered. Sudden change of circumstance, for example, maybe the partner whom with she was living with, he expires, or she gets into a divorce, or she, due to any circumstances, she plans that she cannot really afford to have a baby. So such circumstances have also not been given any consideration here, or domestic violence. So nothing but just the fetal abnormalities have been given a clause in this particular act, in this particular bill. So it mandates the government to set up a medical board in every state and union territories. So personal beliefs of the board could impact their opinion as well. And here it has also been said that this medical board is really, practically, if we talk about, we are not even in a situation to have this medical board in every state and union territory, because already the budget allocation which is there in the health sector, it is quite less as compared to various other developed countries in the world. And in such a scenario, having a complete medical board for entirely this thing, also keeping in mind that India already has a shortage of doctors, this would really not be a very feasible idea in the long run. And then Madhya Pradesh High Court denied permission for termination of 26-week-old pregnancy to a 13-year-old rape survivor. So this is a bizarre thing that could have taken place, that since the pregnancy had crossed 24 weeks, MP High Court did not allow the termination of pregnancy of a 13-year-old rape survivor. So can you imagine the trauma she must have gone through? So definitely it's a big problem. And all these things should be taken up. Firstly, the consent, that is the biggest thing. Consent of that particular woman should be given primary importance. And secondly, the feasibility of medical boards in every state and union territory, keeping in mind the resources, the finance, as well as the availability of expert doctors, is also to be thought upon. So you can go through these also. Operation Safe, it talks about the safe abortion. So with this, let's see what do we have for news in flash today. India-China border issue. Basically, this is a small update on the India-China border issue which was going on in the Ladakh region. So according to the latest disengagement plan, both the sides, India and China, have agreed to return to the pre-April 2020 positions in eastern Ladakh along the line of actual control. So that's something is really to be very happy about. But still, let's see that how does this process go on, and what next do we have to see in this particular direction. Secondly, Chinese probe enters Mars. The Chinese spacecraft Tianwen-1 successfully entered the orbit of Mars after a nearly 7-month voyage from Earth. An orbiter from UAE also entered on Tuesday, after which this Tianwen-1 had entered, followed by the Chinese orbiter rover Combo and US. So it will be entering the next week. So US will be entering the next week in this particular orbiter. And thirdly, Koch Rajbongshi. So basically, Koch Rajbongshi is a community with roots in the Kamata Kingdom, which comprise the parts of Assam, West Bengal, and adjoining territories. Basically, as we know now, elections in West Bengal are going on. So there's a lot of heat about that election that is to take place. So here, this community, this Koch Rajbongshi community is a very, very prominent community over there. So it is estimated to number over 33 lakh in West Bengal, and large presences there in Assam too. That is why they hold a very good importance for the electoral votes as well. So what is this you should keep in mind? With this, we are done for the day. We hope it was a good session for you. Please stay tuned with LawSikho. And if in case you wish to download the PDF for today's slides, you can join a Telegram group. The link is in the description box below. Thank you so much.